Well, morning boys and girls. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. Alright, down the same Martham boat dyke, but today I'm doing a little bit of piking. See how we got on with that. There was a few fish swirling the other day when I was down here. Obviously after the roach, that's a live roach. So today I thought I'd have a go at them. I ain't done that much piking the last few years, but I don't mind having a go now and then. Well, tackle wise is pretty basic. I just got a little tapered stop knot, or just a little tapered sleeve, going down to a bung, a swivel, obviously a bit of wire, and I like to use a single treble and a standard J hook. I know everyone's different, everyone likes doing different things, but that's how I do it. There's a lot of things saying using single this and single that and doing this, but at the end of the day, people do what they like. As long as it isn't harming anyone, and it generally isn't. Everyone's got a different opinion and idea, so that's what I'm happy with. I always use a single J hook and a single treble. Bait today, that's going to be obvious, isn't it? I could have caught some live bait, but I'm only come down for a couple of hours. I couldn't really bother to take all the gear, so I got a couple of herring out the freezer last night. And because these are herring caught after Christmas, they're spent herring, so their oil content has gone down from about 25% down to about 4%. So they've got very low oil in them. You see they're spent and they're thin, no roe. So what I do is I put a couple of herring in the bag, put a couple of squirts of salmon oil, give it a rub and leave it in the fridge all night to defrost. So these herring are now covered in oil. People say that don't make a difference, but that do. I've proved it myself. I've been fishing next to mates before were spent herring caught the night before, and they've done me with 3-year-old mackerel until I put a squirt of oil on my herring, and then I caught up with them. But they definitely do pick up on oil in the right times and conditions. At the end of the day, why would you want to eat a dead bait over a fresh bait? I think that's why herring are so good, is because of the high oil content. Obviously freshwater fish, most of them have got low oil content, and obviously animals strive for energy. And obviously with herring, it's full of oil, they get a lot more energy out of it than they would if they're just eating plain whitefish, like roach. I don't know if you see all this line everywhere. That isn't my line, I don't know where it's from. Someone's left it everywhere. I'll pick up before we go. But this is the easy way I bait. I bait them up. Obviously J hook through the bone, rest of the tail, in hard bit, and then just put that in the back. Perfect. Good strong point for casting, and then something on the side to pick up in the mouth. Well, I'm now going to bait up the head using the same tackle. Obviously in the mouth and out, that's a hard bit, and just nick it in the side. One thing you notice with herring what are spawned, they've got a hell of a lot of blood. Before Christmas, that's all oil, no blood, and after Christmas, that's all blood and no oil. That's why I dipped them in salmon oil. So obviously they've got plenty of oil in them now. Well, obviously I fished this the other day with a pole, and that's about 4.5 foot deep in the middle, 3 foot near the edges sort of thing. So I'm going to fish just off the bottom if I can, or lay on the bottom just gently, because there's a lot of blanket weed in there and that's a pain in the bum. I don't like covering all the gear up. So I'll cast them, just get them out. Well, as the herring are off the bottom, I cast them across here, across from the other side, and obviously they're drifted down, drifted along the other margins. See there's two, one behind the other. I'm just letting, obviously I'll just go in a big arc, cover a bit of area, and they'll settle when the line pull tight, basically, because the wind is blowing along the boat dyke, so they'll settle when that line pull tight. The initial cast is obviously right across there, and that'll just basically run along and do an arc. That'll pivot on your rod. So I let a little bit more line out, so that went across the far margins, drifted along, and now they'll come round. They'll probably be on this margin's time I stop. Just see how it go. I like to give a little bit of movement and cover a little bit of area. Especially if there's a pike or something along that edge and that's just off past his nose. Well, the far one's starting to come tight on the line, so put a little bit more line out and that'll drift back a bit further. All I did was just flick off the bail arm, lift up the rod, release about another 10 foot of line or whatever, then put it back down. Easy peasy. Well, I bought my bucket and it's got my old ground bait in it. I was going to go yesterday, but I didn't in the end, so I'm just going to ding that in around my gear. So I'll hopefully pull a few live baits to the area, because obviously pike are attracted by fishing. Let's do that. Gave the old fish a feed, didn't do any harm to it. Well, the gear's drifted quite nicely. One rod is settled down there on this margin, the other one is settled on the far margin, so I'm covering both options just by letting the wind drift and letting out a bit more line. Hopefully if there's a pike coming along each margin, or any margins, that'll be a bonus. Well, I'll just pull the inside rod in, I'm going to flick it across the other side in that margin, let it drift along them two boots and do another little arc just to have a bit of movement in the water. Just nicely flicked at the far margin there. I'll leave plenty of line out, so obviously it's there, I'll just drift along there in a big arc, come round, and that'll settle just down here in this margin again. So in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that cover a nice big area. Of course, drifting lovely down that far margin. So we've got a nice pike there to come and eat it. We can all hope, can't we? But I think there's quite a few pike in here. Like the other day, I was getting there dark and the old jacks were getting active and splashing around on the surface and stuff. I think there's plenty of fish in here, but there's also plenty of roach to feed on. Well, I will say one thing, that's bloody relaxing doing this. Pole fishing on the gill all the time. On the beach you're up and down reeling in, and here you cast once every blue moon and sit behind your brolly out the wind on a nice comfy chair having a coffee. Can't be bad. I've done worse things, let's put it that way. Well, I think I've cast the near rod in a couple of times, let it drift along, but I've left the far rod out there. I'm going to wind that in, recast that thing. Just a little underarm flick, nothing too major. That doesn't tear the hooks in the bait and don't put pressure on anything. Just a little underarm flick, just under, pardon me, just under the bow of that boat, and that'll drift along there nicely. I just zoomed in a little so you can see what's happening. Well, the inside float was cast to the other side and drifted and come round into this bank, and the other one was cast in the front of that boat, and that's just going to drift along there, then come round as well. In fact, with the wind direction, that one probably just drift along there and stay there. But yeah, we're covering both margins. Anything come up the river, or boat should I say, see how it go. Well, it's time to move this inside one again. I'm going to flick that back out. Bit of weed on it, not a lot. See, there's blood coming out of it. So I'm just going to flick it across there. Typical when you film it, I'll probably end up in a bush. Let that gust of wind go first. It's quite windy today, but you can't hear it because I've got my magic fluffer on. That'll do nicely there, and that'll just drift along. Well, I just reset these again. You can see that one down there, and the other one down there. Obviously I flicked it in front of the bow of that boat and flicked that one in front of the bow of that boat. They're just drifting along nicely again, the margins again, until they end up in the middle, and the other one end up in the middle. But there must be a lot of fish there, I've got to admit. There looked quite a lot of jacks here the other evening, but they don't look a lot feeding today. Well, I got a few maggots for me, and I thought I'd give the local robin a feed. They didn't do any harm, do they? But winter time is cold, so I'm sure they'll enjoy them. 3 red maggots. Well, desperate measures, desperate times. I now got my landing net handle off another landing net, a pull rig. I'm trying to catch some live bait, but so far I've only caught one, and it's tiny. But that'd be nice to get maybe a live bait one might be doing a little bit better. So that's what we're going to try. Oh. See that? That's off. That is guerrilla warfare fishing when you're using a pull rig tied to your landing net handle. Well, the old pull rig on the end of a landing net handle actually worked. And I'll just put a roach on to see if we can get anything on that. Nom nom nom. But you look at that other one, poor little bugger, he ain't no good for nothing. I'll catch that. That's the biggest one out of the lot. I'll put that back. Tiny little old thing. Well, the water's on the ebb tide, so it's going out. And if you can see now, across there, my float ain't drifting anymore. That means the water's dropped 6 or 8 inches, I think. So now, my dead bait is sitting on top of the weed on the bottom. I think it caused no problem. But yeah, that's just sitting there fishing now, no more drifting. Well, the livey is over the far margin between a couple of boats, just swimming around leisurely. Hopefully a pike will see him and have him for tea soon, but that's not looking very good so far. That's been very quiet this morning, I've got to admit. You've got to be a bit careful with liveys, they'll tow your gear around. And to the left there's a kayak with a sheet on it, and the sheet's blown in the water, so you don't want getting tangled around that, do you? Why they left that boat kayak like that, I don't know. You see there's a couple of cleats on the side of the boat. Why don't they tie the boat out of the water on them cleats? Be a lot more sensible, wouldn't it? Was that too easy? I don't know. Well, this isn't looking very good, is it? I've been here 3 or 4 hours and I think I'm going to call it a day in a minute. I tried live baits, deads, tried with everything really, and that just didn't happen. There's another angler or two here. I don't see them catching any pike either, so maybe it's probably better in the evening, but who knows. Well, that's me all done and dusted. Time for them. Bloody typical, the sun's come out. That won't do any harm. Sun come out for an hour or two, put a couple of degrees temperature in the water. But I've got other things to do, so I'm going to have to go home. Well, hope you find it interesting. Shame it's another blankety blank, but there you go, that's life, innit? Catch you later. Bye.